What is up, sexy people? It's Dave. It is Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from Delaware-and-Pennsylvania-bred metalcore quintet, Foreign Hands. The band's new album, What's Left Unsaid, is out on June 21st on Sharptone Records. So, vocalist Tyler Norris and guitarist vocalist Jack Beatson grew up going to shows in Delaware. Guitarist Gil Gonzalez hails from Pennsylvania. The trio became acquainted when their earlier bands played shows together. An early incarnation of Foreign Hands emerged in 2016, and by the time bassist Chuck Minnix and drummer Tyler Washington were on board, the sound shifted dramatically, drawing on the deep love Beatson and Norris share for metalcore innovators of the late 90s and early 2000s. At the time, some bands were trying to bring back that sound, but there weren't many, Beatson recalls. We wanted to write music in the vein of bands like Poison the Well, Converge and Turmoil. Something just clicked. This is what we want to be doing. This is where our band should go. Knocked Loose guitarist Isaac Hale became an early champion of the band, offering to help them finish writing a few songs before they made the incredibly well-received 5-song Bleed the Dream EP in Chicago with producer Andy Nelson.
That's how you do it. That's how you come out the gate swinging.
Big Andy. The EP just kind of exploded from the jump. Marvel's Beatson. We put out the first song, Separation Souvenir, and it blew up. It spread like wildfire right out of the gate. We were taken aback. Shortly after that, Sharptone reached out to us. We connected with our manager. They were both stoked on what we were doing, and it felt like the right move. The upcoming debut album was produced by Will Putney.
Oh, the Putney man strikes again.
And intends to showcase a throwback to the 2000s metalcore sound with injections of a hardcore approach. The comparisons to Poison the Well are undeniable, but one of the things we want to do on What's Left Unsaid is come into our own, says Beatson. We haven't abandoned our influences, but we're adding elements and pushing the boundaries of our established sound further. So, the debut album from Foreign Hands.
Yeah, that's
what?
Nonsense. That's nonsense.
Shut the front door. We played one of their tracks on a recent podcast a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I think that's the one we had a certain Sharptone Records
Can you still
head of A&R on
promote? Can you still promote that like weeks on?
Forever, Duncan.
Until he comes back, and then we'll promote his new interview.
Yeah. We recently spoke to Barley from Sharptone on our last podcast. Check it out. It's on Spotify, Apple, all those other places if you want to hear it. I was kind of in on that track. I don't know, did you check out the single that we played?
Yeah, I did during the edit, and
right.
Yes, Poison the Well was a band that's definitely in there. Tell you what was a band that was straight on the tip of my tongue. 36 Crazy Fists, was like right there, like right from the off, and there's a lot of that right through here in the best possible way, right? I know 36 Crazy Fists morphed quite a bit over their time, and got like progressively heavier and weirder as longer they went on, but like my introduction to 36 Crazy Fists kind of sounded a little bit like this. Right. Like absolutely, I think it's the screamier vocal tone reminds me a lot of him.
Right.
Can't remember what his name was. Chuck.
Brock, I think it was.
Brock. Something. I knew it was a
It's close.
like a one syllable name. So yeah, it like reminded me a bit of that, but like from seconds into listening to the track we put in the podcast, I was like that. Oh my god. Oh, I'm back at college in the best possible way. It like took me, grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and pulled me back there. I fucking love this genre, man. Absolutely love it. So, many have tried to kind of resurrect it. Most of them are not very good at it.
Yeah,
they're lazy. A lot of them are lazy. they understand the formula but don't understand the conviction. I don't think Foreign Hands suffer from that at all.
Interesting. Okay, so what did you make of the rest of the album then after hearing the single?
So yeah, like this one, it follows right. This era of music was kind of like, to give context. I always believe you give context, especially to things that are over 20 years old, and it makes sense. this kind of brand of metallic hardcore specifically kind of kicked in a weird fucking period where we were unsure whether or not we should be listening to new metal. We were unsure whether or not emo was the next thing that was going to take us off, or screamo. Emo or screamo. You have to pick one. You can't have both. Pop punk was there, right in front of your face. Like, you couldn't fucking swing a cat for not being hit with like a Green Day, a Blink-182, or a New Found Glory song. Right, it was just right fucking there. And this new wave of American heavy metal was starting to find its feet, and you got this just group of bands that had this kind of, they played to formula. I mean, all the tracks are formula like based, so it's all like intro, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, interlude, verse, chorus. The interlude is likely the intro, either slowed down or heavied up, and that's it. The bands that could afford the guitarist that could sing as well, guess what? There's a lot of guitarists in music videos singing segments while the singer was like, "This is a bit where I fucking swing my mic, go and get water." And that was the scene, but it was fucking great, right? And the weird thing about it is there's a lot of bands that did it, but unlike all those other genres that I mentioned, it kind of just naturally petered out without people going, "Oh, another one of these bands." It just kind of had its time. And some of those bands are still going on. They've morphed their sound a little bit, but it's kind of going on. Whereas all the other genres I mentioned there, it got to a point where you were kind of sick of listening to that genre. And it's why I've got like a weird nostalgia for it, because I never think it kind of had its, it was never the biggest out of any of them. It never really got the recognition either, although all those bands, I think if you go back and listen to the back catalogue of work, all those bands totally fucking stand up. Like every single one of them totally stand up. You got variety in their sound. So
the labels kind of disappeared as well, though. Like,
it wasn't all like the ones promoting
it out, just kind of Trust Kills and all that. They kind of disappeared as well.
Yeah, it just kind of, I think it kind of ran out of steam, and not because the audience had had enough of it, just because it just naturally just petered out. And that's what I say, you go back and listen to that stuff, it fucking holds up across the board. Foreign Hands have captured so much of that, right? Like across the board. Some of that's in the production. The production on this weirdly is of the era, but like modernized. And like it just reminds me, there's no fuckery here at all, because there doesn't need to be. It's heavy, it's savage, it's scathing, it's sharp, and it hits you when like those heavier, like we're going to do like a big old heavy Bims riff. When that kicks in, it just works. The formula they have, they don't overuse either, so it's not as if like every single song here is going to be predominantly, you know, the screamy shouty vocals, and you're going to get the chorus is going to be sung by the guitarist in a kind of Caliban style approach. They don't. That was Caliban with a C, not Taliban, right? Not like that at all.
Demonetized.
Demonetized now. That check the transcript. What did it say? Closed captions. I'll say Taliban. I said that again there.
Oh fuck.
So making nothing but
delete.
But the not in that formula. Actually, what's really interesting about this one is where the first 4 songs really go in on that kind of tradish sound, and by the time you hit Horror Domain, which I thought just from reading the track title, this is gonna be heavy, because Horror Domain, like you get hit with it leads with the clean vocals and this like really kind of nice like clean guitar tone before juxtaposing with harder sections, so they switch up the formula in a really cool way. And it's one like across the board here, all the choruses soar. I don't think they're always the most memorable, but like Horror Domain is a great example of that, where the chorus is fucking chef's kiss good, and just like you're singing it while you're cleaning dishes, you're like taking the dogs for a walk, and like it's in your head. And the back half of the album experiments a little bit more with the cleans taking a bit more of a predominance, whereas the front half of the album, they're more used to fill up sections as opposed to be the driving force of the song. And I really liked that. It showed to me that there wasn't a kind of moratorium on how they approach, how they write music. It's like they're still willing to switch things up. There were bands doing it back in 2001 though. I mean, it's not as if they're like reinventing the wheel here. They're just actually snugly fitting in. And what was interesting about this is like the more I listened to it, the more I thought if I'd heard like What's Left Unsaid back then, would I have loved this album? And I would. Like, there's no getting around it. Like, it fits so snug and so authentic. Poison the Well, like, they're another band that I go through like phases of, like, you'll be sitting there and you're like, what, fucking scrolling through stuff, and then you'll be like that. It's a Poison the Well day, and then you lose a day. Like, that's all you listen to is Poison the Well all day. So, like, I think it fits snugly in there. So
I need to buy that on vinyl. I need to
you
get that
need
on
to
vinyl.
buy that on vinyl. Why do you not buy that on vinyl?
Tear from the Red on vinyl. Yes. Geese it.
Geese it. But yeah, like, so it fits snugly in there. I think if their mission as a band was to almost capture the vibe, the sound, the energy, and the flow of the bands that they mentioned in their press statement, this is a mission accomplished, and not in a George Bush mission accomplished forever war sort of way. You know what I mean? Like, everything's okay. War went on for 2 decades after. You know what I mean? It's not like that, but as in, like, this fits the brief. There's enough in the modern in here that I really like without it kind of sounding like a pastiche. It kind of holds together. Only criticism, like, and it is a tiny, tiny, tiny smidge. This album clocks in at a nice, healthy 32 minutes. I could have done with 1 or 2 more songs, personally. I really liked it. I actually think there's more in the tank from these guys, specifically with the choir moments. I actually think they could have, like, maybe they could have done a much more melodic, like, quieter song in here. I actually think they could have went the other way. I think they could have done something really short, uber savage, and it would have worked on this album as well, which is the exciting thing. I hear levels, I hear layers, I hear potential, and for a debut, this is, like, very, 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 very well put together. I can see why Sharptone snapped them up, because they're planning 2-3 albums ahead, and I already hear 2-3 albums ahead and what I'm hearing I love. So yeah, Foreign Hands, well done, guys, really good. This is your wheelhouse, because you were into this genre quicker than I was. I remember you were giving me, like, I was still buying new metal and ducking Green Day, and you were like, no, listen to this. Have you heard this band, Duncan? Like, you got me into the Trustkill and Ferret record labels and all the rest. So did you get a wee misty eye there, Dave?
I mean, like, I'm an absolute shill for, like, this late 90s, early 2000s metalcore. I fucking love it, Duncan. Bands like Turmoil, like, love Turmoil, Poison the Well. I've been listening to those bands for over 20 years now. And I feel like, that there are some modern bands that try and, like, emulate it or include a bit of that, you know, sound into their own sound. But they don't always nail it. But on this, like, nostalgia, definitely. There was a huge kind of nostalgic feel on this, which I love to hear. It takes me back to a time where that style was just so visceral and ugly and raw. And, you know, as cool and heavy as breakdowns are in the current kind of metalcore scene, they kind of pale in comparison to the era of that late 90s.
Because they're all effects, aren't they? Like nowadays, your guitars can detune so fucking heavy, and you can have, like, 75 electric impact booms and all the rest. There's something really fucking dangerous about a band not having to do that and just going, and you're like, oh fuck, you know, like, or everything cutting out in a dun dun dun. You're like, no, we're not ready. Like, there's something just cool about that, I think.
I think, like, Foreign Hands are a band that are bringing together that period of metalcore, but, you know, with a bit of a kind of modern flair, and it's kind of awesome, to be honest. First of all, the album sounds fucking huge. Like, Will Putney's giving it the old Putney rub, so it's production.
Putney rub, honestly.
Oh, fire. Absolute fire production. Everything is really, really crisp and super punchy, but it does have a bit of that, like, kind of older kind of throwback kind of feel as well. Which I loved. It goes hard right from the first second on Resetting the Scenes, where they marry up these, like, thunderous grooves and that kind of late 90s metalcore kind of savagery, but it kind of never stands still. Like foreign hands constantly keep things moving. The tempo is always fluctuating. The rhythms are always back and forth. And before you know it, they've seamlessly redirected into this big melodic hardcore meets post-hardcore chorus that will kind of hook you straight in. Like there's quite a few tracks here which just have that kind of massive chorus on it, and the cleans are very well controlled. Like, and that the first track there, like when the chorus break kind of comes in, they've still got the kind of savage vocals sitting in the background as well. So you've got that real kind of balance between the clean and that barking kind of raspy vocal up against it. But even when it does get cleaner, there's always something in the background, just, you know, keeping it at a certain level of heavy. And I love that. Like, I think it kind of stopped them from sounding too saccharine at times, you know, which, you know, if they leaned over too much into that, it might put people off. But I love hardcore. I love melodic hardcore. So I was in my element with this. The clean choruses work perfectly, and added a really cool balance. And something, you know, a bit more memorable in the album as well. They also don't do that in every track, which I liked. You know, there's plenty of tracks where they do just go kind of full force without any clean vocals, combining those kind of metalcore elements with that kind of thick metallic hardcore sound. God on Their Fingernails does just that. It's like no frills. There's a kind of touch of like eerie melody in the lead work, but mostly it's just like, let's just go as hard as we can and finish it off with the kind of nastiest of breakdowns. But what I liked was the heavy parts on this are also really memorable. They go to town on those like halftime grooves, which sound colossal on this, but I think that's also partly down to the fact that by adding in those kind of hookier, more melodic choruses, that contrast makes the heavy parts sound even heavier. And yeah, there's certain influences that they clearly have as a band, but to be honest, I think like having an influence like Poison the Well isn't necessarily a bad thing. They are a kind of legendary band who don't really put out much material anymore, so it's kind of great to hear that bands still have a bit of that kind of sound kind of injected into their own. Laceration Wings for me was like a real kind of throwback moment, because you've got that nostalgic kind of pang of Poison the Well, also a little bit of kind of Misery Signals in there as well, especially in that kind of like the spoken word sections which they used back in the day, and Horror Domain as well. Like you can hear a bit of Poison the Well, the kind of clean vocal coming through, maybe a little bit of Thursday as well actually at times. But even when they do touch on an influence, it still has that kind of foreign hands kind of slant on it. Although I could hear the influence, it never felt like they were just trying to rip it off or emulate it too much. To be honest, my only real kind of complaint about this one is there is no real kind of huge deviations from their sound. They generally kind of slap the listener silly with, you know, big heavy verses. They will.
This is what you like.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is what you're getting.
Then they'll like annihilate you with these breakdowns, and then they'll occasionally throw in like a kind of sing-along hook for you. But as you said, there's different compositions of that throughout the album. They don't follow a strict kind of blueprint on it. Some tracks go more dissonant than others. But I did find maybe the last third of the album, there was a couple of tracks maybe just didn't stand out quite as much, because I think the front half of the album is extremely strong. I agree with you. I think maybe in that kind of back part of the album, something either very kind of light and more melodic, or something really extremely heavy would have worked better just towards the end there, just to kind of break it up and give you something a bit more kind of memorable. But to be honest, by the closing track, you know, it's picked back up and they make sure the album goes out on a bang. It's loaded with a big old like post-hardcore melody in the chorus, very jagged verses, and there's a big halftime breakdown in the middle as well. It might not be the most like unique thing you've ever heard. You know, if you're looking for an album that's pushing boundaries, then this might not scratch that itch. It's kind of catering to a different crowd, but this is like,
or a new crowd. I was thinking about this. That genre that we're talking about is, those bands are 20 years old now.
Yeah.
So if you're getting into getting into music, you're an angry teenager now, this is the stuff your parents were listening to. So you know what I mean? It's weird. It's weird to think that. Yeah. My daughter's going through a Slipknot phase at the moment, which we cannot stop for whatever reason, even though I've outgrown Slipknot a while ago. Yeah. and like to see her get into it and then think, I was that like 20 years ago. So like there'll be a new crowd in there. I just the good thing about them is they wear their influences as much on their sleeve that hopefully people go back and check that music out.
Hopefully, yeah. For the most part, this is like bottled violence, you know, but it's got that like
bottled violence.
It's got a when you crack the bottle, it's got a nostalgic aroma at the same time. And sometimes that's just what you're in the mood for. Yeah, I'm thoroughly impressed with this. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing where they go next, because they've got all the tools to make an absolute classic album. I feel like this band could be huge. So yeah, excited, definitely excited. Really enjoyed this one. What we're thinking on the score front for What's Left Unsaid?
I'm coming in with a 4 with this one. Like I said, it just made me happy. Made me happy and also want to break something at the same time, or be happy breaking something. I think more, there's a chapter in music which never really closed, and I think when bands like revisit that sound or going to write the next chapter, if we're going with the book analogy, I've started, I might as well finish. I think I can appreciate it. I can get behind it, and I do get, I was joking about getting like misty-eyed and all this. There is a bit of me that kind of misses a simpler time in music. When like bands just went for it without all the gadgets, trickery and tomfoolery that you get now, which is awesome and it's modern. But like angry like 19-year-old Duncan craves bands like Foreign Hands. So it's kind of cool every now and again when a band comes out that's genuinely good at it, and they're genuinely good at it. That 4 that I'm giving them is because I think, very much like yourself, they've got a classic in them, and you need to give it a 4 right now for the next album, which will no doubt will be higher up than that. So all tools there. Great release. Check it out.
Yeah, for sure. So 4 out of 5 from me as well. Totally agree.
In sync tonight, man.
Really are. I think there's more to come from these guys, and it's going to be bigger and better on the next release. To be honest, you can hear they've got something there. They've got exactly what it takes to kind of push to that next level. So I'm excited to hear what they do next. But for this one, definitely check it out. 4 out of 5 from me. Well worth listening to. If you love that kind of old school sound, the old kind of metalcore sound, then this is a no-brainer. Check it out for sure. I'll put all the information below. It drops on June 21st on Sharptone Records. Links below. Check out, see what you think. That's the review. Thanks for checking out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.